Welcome to the Colorado Festival of Horror. Smurf here, and I have had lots of fun with Vincent. But now we're going to bring James into the party. Where have you been? Are you been hiding? Are you running around? Are you enjoying the con?
Absolutely. It's always a great experience to come and, show your film to people and get the word out and hang with my buddy Vinny.
I mean, Vinny and I have had great moments. Last night's Q&A at the end of the film felt good to me. Did you have a good time?
Yeah. No.
Was there questions that you wanted asked, or was there more that you wanted to say, or did you get the message out?
No, I get the message out. I mean, it's usually pretty. I'm just always ready for there are a few the questions always come. It's like, wait, how do you do this legally? How did you get Tom in the film? And so there's it's like those are kind of like, all right, let me get the greatest hits out. we pop this in the jukebox, and it's a nice story I know how to tell.
A nice little package.
Yeah, no, I think that if anything, it's always I always like when there's a filmmaker in the audience and they pick up on something film nerdy. So
right.
We can talk about camera, or we can talk, how'd you get that effect? And let me get into the dives, the depths of that. But no, I mean, it's always good. It's just as long as people are excited and they're smiling and they've enjoyed a Friday the 13th film on Friday the 13th, I'm happy.
And I think it was a hit. It was great. And speaking of your camera angles and everything, because I am going to dive into the film, because I loved Never Hike Alone, The Devil's Cut, Frozen Cut, whatever, the Ghost Cut.
The Devil's
Cut.
All right.
I mean, is that going to be like the sequel now? It's The Devil's Cut. The film angles and everything for the room and the house and building that environment. I mean, did it take a lot of prep work, or did you guys kind of just descend in this and just go we need this, this, and this, and just kind of it wrote itself?
No, I mean, for me, it was, I spent a lot of time walking around those sets, just experiencing them as somebody. And rewinding a little bit further, one of my, childhood sort of dreams that I always have, or one of the things I'd always imagined doing, because I was, I can really visualize things in my brain, which was, man, I would love to just walk around Camp Crystal Lake. I would love to just peek in and see it for myself, and then maybe all of a sudden I see Jason, and maybe I could track him around for a little bit.
Right.
You know what I mean? And just, what does he do during the day? What's he up to?
And that's what I love. The scene where he just sits down on the bed, the day is done, and he just.
Yeah, it's like another
decompression moment.
But for me, then I kind of go back and I start, and then I have, as far as a cinematic eye and trying to get angles, it's sort of, I just see what speaks to me in sort of the moment of what is grand about this place.
Right.
What really makes it feel like the scene in the first Never Hike Alone where Kyle walks into the main hallway for the first time, stands in front of the fireplace and the lights coming through the windows. That was an actual experience that I had. That was the first time me and my crew walked up there, and we walked there, and it was sunset.
Right.
And the sun was coming through with the perfect beams and the trees outside, and it was the orange glow, and we were just like,
oh, we got to
make a movie here.
Right.
And, from there, it was just about, where is it? Yeah, and, once you get into, understanding cinematography, you know where to go.
Right.
You know where the angles are sort of going to be placed. You just need to dial it in once you're there. And, I would go home and just sort of visualize, camera-wise, what's going to be a fun way to lead the audience into this? How should we pull off these things? And what can we do with this room to sort of reconstruct it to make it fit into the narrative of Never Hike Alone and the fact, or not, Friday the 13th. And, what's the story here? Something as simple as that hallway that leads to the main hallway.
Right.
I was thinking okay, they were getting ready to paint one of the rooms. They got all these bed cots that were actually at this camp. We're let's stack them in the hallway they were getting them out of the way. You know what I mean? They were getting them out of the way to do something, and they were in the middle of fixing something, and then that night happened. And I wanted to feel like this was a place that was mid-construction that all of a sudden just stopped.
Ended.
And so there's this frozen moment of time. And that's what I wanted to create, was this frozen moment of time where it's going to be like this forever, and this is the legend. And that's what this character's experience is, going and still seeing that still there, untouched. And that part of the story that was this place was so scary, no one ever came back. It's been the same since that night, and that
is what I love, because it just sets the whole stage. And as the poor man Bear Grylls, as I like to refer to him as, comes in to do his parkour and all of that, and he's just so intense, and then he realizes, oh, I'm way out. I would have left my bag. Fuck it, I'm not going back. I got out and called it good, but he had to go back.
He had to go back, and the problem with it, we try to create a situation where when he runs into the woods, he doesn't really know where he can go.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if he doesn't have
his gadgets. He's got nothing.
if he's got no map, if he's got none of that stuff, and he's got he's got this wound that if it gets infected, the woods are going to kill him, or the coyotes are going to pick at him, or something else bigger is going to come after him. And then he's got Jason in there, but he knows that like the most unexpected thing is, I'm going to get back in there, I'm going to slink around. Now I'm going to use my skills to do what I can do. And I wanted to create that sort of Friday the 13th the game experience where Jason's walking around the outside of the cabin and he's hiding, and you can kind of see that. And it was like, oh, we're getting that cat and mouse. And this is the fun part of Friday the 13th are those, those final chase sequences. And one of our early backers, I believe it was Matt Cunningham, or Matt Callahan, one of those names. He said, he's like, part 3 is my favorite because it's the longest final chase scene. And it's like, and Never Hike Alone feels like one long final chase scene.
And that is great. It is, and like I said, 3 last night is my favorite. I love, not just because of the hokey 3D crap, but that is like it is the longest chase scene. It is so much fun to watch, and the game is I love playing the game. One of the questions that I didn't ask last night, and I kind of alluded to it, was do you think independent and fan films are going to save Hollywood? Do you think you guys are going to be able to come in and salvage what they've wrecked?
I mean, I think that we can set a course for what could work.
Right.
There's been a lot of fan films that have come out that have tried many different things. And what the studios are most adverse to is risk. And what fan films are like big risks. People are taking big risks to take this time to build these projects. They're getting people rallied around them, trying to get them to invest. But what's nice is that the power is put in the hands of the fans. If someone presents an idea and fans go, yeah, I want to see it, they can invest directly into the project and get it done. And that's what's been really beautiful about it. So when somebody connects with something about, a Friday the 13th fan film or a Halloween fan film or a Nightmare on Elm Street fan film, they're sort of like, if it speaks to them, they can see it come to life.
Right.
I think the only drawback is they may be able to raise some money and we may be able to push the boundaries of what you expect out of independent film, but the studios really need to come in at some point, use our intuition as fans and filmmakers to tell the right stories. And they need to put those budgets to make films what they need to be, the right way. Yeah.
You get these films that are like, $100 million, and they don't even break even. I mean, what was your budget that you said last night for your film?
$350,000.
And boom.
But if that's a $5 million film, that's an extra 20 minutes we could have put into the movie. Those effects and that time that we had to take, those things, the camera work, the amount of days we could have spent at each location, kind of really fleshing out scenes even more.
Right.
There's still we're still working up against time and restrictions, even with a $350,000 budget. So if it was something like that, and that's what fans are used to seeing. Like we watched, Jason Lives again last night, and as I'm sitting there watching it, I'm thinking about like in a way I've never really think about them before. Is like, wow, look at the production of like shooting here and doing this, and catching those things, and even those things, I'm sure they were up against it in a certain budget constraint, but they had the power to go in and build this, like, do these things with this Winnebago, flip a Winnebago, have the fire sequences, have this.
That would be, I see them lighting you on fire with 350,000.
Yeah, so, I mean, you could, but it's sort of like, at that point, you're in, like, backyard wrestling territory.
Right.
And you're putting people at serious risk, and you're saying, well, yeah, I'm a stunt man, you know what I mean? And all you are.
You're not Colt Seavers.
Yeah, what was that movie, like, the comedian from SNL who does his it was like Hot Rod, that movie Hot Rod with him.
Oh,
and he's like the
Adam Sandberg.
Yeah, Adam Sandberg, and he's like he always crashes. It's sort of like
the Super Dave Osborne.
And that was one of my concerns with fan films is that all of a sudden, amateur filmmakers are going out and they're feeling compelled to go out and try stuff. Now, what about the safety issues? Because all of a sudden, what if somebody doesn't know that, like, we're not using real machetes? Like, we got stunt machetes that are plastic that not going to hurt anybody. Or like they're dulled blades that, like, couldn't cut through a cantaloupe. Like, you know what I mean? These are, we're taking all the safety precautions. Who's going to backyard wrestle themselves into, someone getting hurt, getting into lawsuits and all of these different things? And my other concern was who is going to come up with an idea, do everything AI-generated art, and then run away with everybody's money? And so it's a risk. And so it's sort of one of those things where it is a very risky venture where there's sort of less oversight in it because it's a deal between the backers and the creators. But hopefully we've set a good precedent. I know James and his team has set a good precedent of if you fund us, we will build it, and then it's all yours.
And not to mention the fact that, Hollywood, even though they have this money that they can throw at films, they they still try to play things safe. They don't want to take story risks like fan films can do. We can take those risks like sending Headless Pamela zombified through the woods, you know, and killing people. We can do that. And fans love it, you know. Hollywood's not going to probably go that route.
We can't
But
do
they
that.
should see that and understand that, like, now they can take that idea and now put the hundreds of thousands of dollars that can go into like a Pamela rig that have more VFX and all that, and not putting like all the pressure on Carl, to do all the work. It's like, those are the things, like, they see these ideas like fully blossomed at
Well, and
that
even
studio
with like green
level.
screen and all that, even just like a 10-minute session doing like the running through the woods. I mean, you can't tell, like the Star Wars environment, you can't tell that you're not on a sound stage. I mean, how that
The volume.
the depth and everything that they've added in that room is no bigger than this. So I couldn't imagine that sequence in that kind of scenario, and you guys would save time and it would look as great. But I think you guys are writing better than Hollywood can at this stage of the game.
Yeah. So I think it's more of seeing the value in the stuff that we're coming up with, and then getting the investment from that level of saying, okay, let's trust these creators with an important IP, but they understand the IP and they understand the pan. And like James was saying, with the whole like 4 quadrant of it all, like they want to appeal to everyone. They want it to go on.
They got to check
Netflix
the
and
boxes.
They got to check all the boxes. Versus, who is this made for? Okay, it's made for this crowd. How much does this crowd invest in things? Oh, that much? Well, make it for that much money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think a lot of people are trying at the end of the day to get paid because they're associated with a brand. And so they want to get paid these huge lumps of sums of money that are never going to come because they're never going to make anything new. But if they were investing in $5 to $10 million versions of Friday the 13th and releasing them on streaming and empowering people, all of a sudden, maybe they're not getting paid the whatever they think they're owed. But if there's 5 or 6 projects that come out in Netflix over the next 6 years, they're all generating money for it, and they're getting
money.
what they owed. You know,
Yeah, they're getting money that way.
and the fans get what they want. They get what they want. I think this whole, like, you know, everyone getting mad at each other over this lawsuit is sort of the only people who are really suffering are the fans. They had their careers, they made their money. They have nothing else to, you know, really work for. So
Poor choices on that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, do you think the streaming industry can help horror along better with like project like you guys and all of that?
Like Shudder. I mean, you have platforms like Shudder that support horror,
Right.
that take on you know, independent projects. I mean, even Amazon Video takes on a lot of things like that.
there's a high level of oversaturation, but again, there's also the appeal of who are you making your film for?
Right.
And if you are a filmmaker, you really have to be responsible for going out and finding your audience. And you got to get them into film festivals, and you got to get reviews written up, and it's got to be a good product. And the good products, you know, as Macho Man said, the cream rises to the top.
Well, that's a big thing, I think, too, is that people have to understand, and we have the stigma of the word fan film attached to our projects. Not all fan films are created equal.
That is
you know?
true story.
And one of the things that, you know, sets, I think, Vinny and I apart is that we've worked in the industry. So we understand set etiquette. We understand what not to do, the safety that goes
The
along
lines not
with
to
being on
cross.
set. Right, the lines not to cross. And finding the right people who we know we can trust helping our production. And that says a lot, because you can tell, you know, and God bless them for going out and making a project, but you can tell the difference between productions in some fan films.
What did you shoot that on for Never Hike Alone?
For Never Hike, we, depending on which one. So the first one, you know, I guess starting at the beginning, we started with the Sony AS7S II.
Okay.
That's where it started. Was just a nice little 4K rig that we shot on a Shogun camera, like a Shogun monitor. We captured it on the monitor, so we were getting ProRes 4K. We were using that for about half the film. And then we hired Evan Butka to be our camera operator, and he brought with him a Red Epic. So all of a sudden we graduated to a Red. We also had another cinematographer, Ben Meredith, who used a Panasonic Baricam.
Okay.
So we used those on the night scenes because it had a 2500 ISO, so we could, you know, drop the ISO way down, get the light up. We were lighting everything with like a 4K light. So once we paired those two things, we had like daylight during the day, and we had full control of color in post.
Wow.
We also used a Sony FX7 on Never Hike Alone 1. So our colorist, when we got all the footage and a GoPro and a drone and an Osmo, so all these, he was like,
The color corrector's like,
Yeah.
fuck you guys.
But he was like, well, at least each scene is shot with the one camera, so we'll just focus on whatever you want for that scene, and we'll go from
And
there.
it adds to the feel of the film. Absolutely.
And each thing kind of is shot its own way, but ever since then it was, then we switched full time to the Red Epic with Evan on most things, and then we ended up on the last one we were on a Red Ranger Monstro, which was Evan's a
beast.
very good DP, and he's been growing in the industry, and so with him his package has been growing. So when he comes out, he's just been, his whole camera set is just like, it's like our backbone. We're getting our cinematography, we know we're getting all those things, but aside from the camera, we also have Gonzalo, our gaffer, who knows a ton about lighting. So it's not just about the camera, it's about
It
the
is
lighting.
about the lighting.
So if you got, we have everything that we need as far as lighting goes. They're very crafty and very, they're quick, and so that's the whole thing. It's like getting these setups
In and out.
in and out, being able to shift everything around. But yeah, we shoot as high as 8K, just so we can get, and a lot of the stunt stuff we shoot 8K, and a lot of the big action stuff, so that way we can kind of punch in and make sure we don't lose our frame.
And Carl, my cinematographer for Jason Rising, we used the 4K Blackmagic pocket cinema cams.
Right.
And he used a lot of the Rokinon and Zine cine lenses. But the great thing about having those smaller cameras is, he has like his Steadicam rig vest, and we can go through the woods and track and not have to do this huge setup, when we're following somebody through the woods or through a cabin and keeping the shot nice and clean. But I think they look great. Carl since then has gone to Red, but
I mean, it's still impressive work. I mean, when you were doing Jason Rising, did you? What were you? I don't want to say what were you thinking, but I mean, what were you envisioning as you were building Jason Rising and doing that? Because that was such a beautiful composure of Jason and how you built that whole story.
I think a lot of it was being an Evil Dead fan, trying to capture that feel of Evil Dead with that environment of the crazy fog and that looming cursed area, and trying to just put that into Camp Crystal Lake. That once
Now
they
that
get
you
into
mention
that,
it, does feel a lot like Evil Dead. Holy crap! I didn't even realize that till this now.
But hey, blame Adam Marcus for making that canon, so I just went with it.
Yeah, you're like, let's do a little of this.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite horror film?
No, I mean Friday the 13th is.
No, I meant Evil Dead.
But Evil Dead is definitely one of the things that, I remember middle school when I saw Evil Dead 2. Even though it's a comedy, it scared the shit out of me. Something about that movie just was crazy.
When they go all demon,
It was.
The scariest thing is you just don't know when they're going to go all demon and why. I mean, I know when you get the bad in you, but for just no reason at all, they just flip on you.
But I looked at that that little cabin in the woods just covered in fog, and I'm like, I want Jason there.
Yeah.
And I think it plays well because of the way Jason keeps coming back, and I know it's sometimes faux pas to mix the two cultures, but it works.
It works very well.
And especially in a fan film.
Tom McLaughlin mixed, old Universal monster logic with Part 7, and with Part 6, and so it's, it worked. And I mixed Never Hike Alone with, 127 hours. Friday the 13th with 127 hours in The Martian. It was sort of like that style of film with, you're taking the lens of that film and putting that story in there, and all of a sudden you're getting something different. You're getting a nice mixture of cinematic sort of storytelling with now the story of Jason within it, which I think is really a way, instead of just doing the formula of Friday the 13th, taking it and sort of finding what does a Friday the 13th story look through this type of, lens. Like when you're telling any style of, whether it's comedy or romance or anything but what does that look like under the guise of this umbrella? So that's what I thought he did very, very well.
No, in an amazing way. And I think there's two films that I can think that kind of have followed your precedent. Was Plus One with the Godzilla film, or no, minus one. Excuse me, minus one.
That's the sequel.
That's the sequel. Plus One. I never care about the humans, and the way they compose that whole story, with your Friday the 13th and all of that, I got the same feel. And Thanksgiving, last year's Thanksgiving film. Absolute home run. That film was, I was like, oh, this is going to just bomb. It was my favorite horror film of last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really captured the essence of you know, a fun slasher movie. You know, it had a nice mystery in it, and there was the whodunit aspect, the Agatha Christie, the giallo of it all.
Yeah.
So I thought they did a really good job of bringing it back to the roots of, you know, slasher films. You know, the originals were always about like who is the killer,
Who is the
what
killer?
their drive, and so I thought that they did that brilliantly, and
Yeah.
that was a real fun aspect of the film.
Yeah. What do you guys have coming up? Can you talk about future projects together, or what do you got going on? Or
Jason Rising 2 is a potential
Okay.
at this time. Whether we move forward with it or not, just not quite there yet. If we move forward, we'll probably crowdfund towards the end of the year, but we'll see. We'll see.
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Yeah, right now we're running a Kickstarter for Never Hike Alone, the final cut. So this is all of our projects from the last 8 years cut into one master cut. We did do the Ghost Cut, which did the first 3 projects together to kind of lead everyone up
Right.
to Never Hike Alone 2. But this is going to be a little bit different, where we're doing one introduction title sequence that's going to be recut with Disappear and some other new footage that we're going to have. And then the rest of it is going to be cut together. Never Hike in the Snow, Never Hike Alone, and Never Hike Alone 2 is like one fluid movie. So there's no title breakups. There's nothing like that. It's just going to flow like one seamless picture. And so we want to put that together. Like, we're crowdfunding now from Friday the 13th to October 31st on Halloween.
Right.
Our goal is $50,000 to do that cut. So to send everything through post-production again, like we're going to have Ryan go back in and tweak the score to match, maybe bring in bigger instruments, bring in a little bit more score aspect, and just give the post-production team a schedule they've never had before. Like, usually when we make Never Hike Alone, they have like 2 months to do their thing. And they're all brilliant at what they do, and they're able to do it very fast. But I want to give them a long stretch of time to go
Right.
out and really hammer home and get the things that they want to do, tweak it down, 5.1 surround sound mix, all that fun stuff. Come out with that. And so that would come out hopefully next year on June 13th, which is Jason's
birthday.
The bonus stretch goal is $100,000, and that's for Ghost in the Fog, which is a 7-minute animated Ghost Jason film. We're doing it with Mako Animation, and yeah, it tells the story of 3 friends that get lost in a dense fog around Crystal Lake and end up wandering into the camp. And while they're searching for shelter, they run into Jason Voorhees, and we get 3 very cool animated Jason Voorhees kills. So the idea is that, you know, this is an aspect we've never seen Jason in before. You know, we've seen maybe clips of stuff like that.
Right.
In different TV shows, but we've never seen a dedicated Friday the 13th animated project. So,
which is very shocking nowadays.
So, you know, we wanted to, you know, they wanted to make a found footage Friday the 13th. We made a found footage Friday the 13th. They wanted Jason in the snow. We put him in the snow, and this is one of our things where we've always wanted to see him animated. So let's breach new ground again and do this for the fans. And so far, we're a day in where we've raised $15,000. Which, you know, your day one goal should always be about 10%.
Yep.
So that's pretty
You're
good.
on
So
track.
we're on track for 150. So we want to keep up that momentum, and we just want to keep people, you know, backing it. Aside from that, there is a chance for a Never Hike Alone 3, maybe way down the line. But there's some original projects we're coming up with next year, like Ghost Chicken, an unnamed project that I'm working on with Tom Matthews, and 2 feature films that I'm attached to that we're trying to get funding for now that hopefully would shoot in spring and winter.
I mean, if you need someone to just kill, no dialogue, just put me in and kill
Just an
me.
exploding head.
Just explode my head. Jeffrey Riddick and I go back and forth all the time. Final Destination guy, him and I are good friends, and I'm like, just put me in. I don't want to talk. Just kill me. I want to be like Jack Kehoe of horror.
I want to be the first guy to log hit.
That's right. Just bam, and that's it. I'm in and I'm out. I'm done. I don't even care about the sequel. You can put me in another suit and kill me in that. So if you need a dead guy, I know a guy. How do they follow you at home and around the world and fans? What's the best way to stay connected to you guys and follow your projects?
We're at Womp Stomp Films on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and X. That's WOMPSTOMPFILMS. If you search Never Hike Alone in Google, everything pops right up. Just head over to our YouTube channel. We have all the films laid out there for you to watch, plus a ton of other fan films, including Jason Rising's on there as well. You can watch, it's linked to that. And some original short horror films like Pathosis and Imagine are on there as well. So definitely come check out what we have and follow us on social media, because we got lots of stuff to announce in the next 6 months.
Yeah, and your YouTube channel must just be a juggernaut right now with the free to watch. So
yeah, it's nice. We got about 85,000 followers. The views have been kicking up Friday the 13th weekend, so it's really nice. You know, Never Hike Alone 2 is closing out on 5 million. Never Hike Alone just crossed 4.6, and you know, it's all collectively, it's like 12, 13 million views for the last few years. So it's been a real fun ride.
it's fun, right? And you?
Same thing. You can just Jason Rising on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Red Crow Films, and Hot Carl Productions with a K.
You said that earlier, and I tried not laughing during that other interview, but I just couldn't help it. Like, oh my God, it is Hot Carl. That's great. And on that bombshell, we shall say goodbye. In the meantime, run fast, laugh hard, and always be kind. Good night.